Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for episode 70 of Walnut Wednesday. And you know what every 10th episode means. We have Miss Kate Bromley back. Hello.
Hello, Lara.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I can't believe, every time I'm like, wow, we're at 70 now. That's crazy.
I know. I was saying to my dad in one of our, car chats with Dad, I said, yes, and I'm interviewing Kate this weekend for episode 70. Bet you didn't think I'd get to 70. And in my dad's voice, he said, no, actually, I am quite surprised. he was kind of just he didn't think I would make it this far. So here I am. Go me, go us.
It's great. Well done.
Thank you. So Walnut, Kate and I were just having a little chat before we hit the record button about survival. And I talked about this a little bit. I scratched the surface in an episode a couple of weeks ago now, where so surviving has been a common theme, but from Kate's end of the world over in the UK at the moment, it's kind of had a little bit of a different meaning. So we thought we'd kind of just pull that apart a little bit and see where the conversation goes. So hopefully you resonate, but if you have any questions or anything like that, we're both inside the Walnut Tree on Facebook, so feel free to either start a discussion or message Kate and I a question and we can start something in there together. But Kate, I guess, shall we start with what does survival mean to you? I guess let's start with how we think about it and what it kind of means to us.
I guess the definition and the way I understand it is survival is doing the bare minimum you need to do to just stay alive, basically. That's what it means fundamentally, is you are keeping yourself alive.
Yeah. And how we got onto this topic was I was kind of discussing Walnut with Kate about how at the moment what I am going through, survival has come up in a way of where you survive the days, you survive people disappointing you, you survive not getting the ice cream you want, you get through these things to get to this end point. And what Kate and I were discussing, I don't know if we can recreate that conversation, Kate, but we were discussing that for you at the moment, that end point is actually, thinking to that end point is actually quite detrimental to your mental health and your well-being at this point in time. Do you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, so what we were saying, kind of like you were talking about, that sometimes you just have to survive and get through the day, and sometimes it's a matter of just being some people survive till Friday so they can have their time on the weekend. And I've never liked that way of living. I've never liked the idea that you're living for the weekend or you're surviving most of your life to just want to get through it. And that means you're not living it. You're just surviving it in the sense of withstanding what's happening around you. And you're not necessarily open to things or present or seeing the good in it. You're just letting it pass by and wanting it to be over. And that's fine. And that's really important for sometimes survival, like I say, when it's survival should be that thing that you do when you're in a position where surviving is your only option because you have so little. If you're, we were talking about, if you're stranded on a desert island, your first and only concern is going to be survival, like building a fire, finding water. If you're in a situation like that, and for me, I'm still in lockdown, and you're well, I got to get through this month and then, it'll be back to normal, or I've got to just survive on this desert island for 3 days and then I'll get rescued. What happens if that endpoint doesn't happen? What do you do? And if you keep just surviving, your life becomes really basic. Like your life becomes like, I can't imagine the people who do live like that, you know, in war-torn countries and things like that, is that we should not be thinking that way for the majority of our lives, because we are not then living. And basically, for me now, is I'm trying not to just survive, I'm trying to still thrive within the situation that I'm living in. So I don't know when I'll get out of lockdown. It's been a year of this pandemic now, and the UK's not done very well at all. So I have actually decided it's better not to just hope for a future that will be better, but try and decide, what can I do in this situation now to make it the best it can be, and like see the little things that are good, and take the small wins, and like eke those out, that those good feelings out. Otherwise, and not only will I just be surviving, but I'll just be negative, because I'm just lying there and letting life just pass, and time will march on, and then it will be another year. And you know, what will you have to show for it? What will you have to celebrate about it? So survival should only be sort of embraced when there is zero other option, when it's crucial, when you don't have, you know, the bare basics for living, and that's what you have to like find to make sure you can continue on. Anything otherwise, you should be trying to like thrive. You've got to try and live your life in the best way possible, because otherwise it'll just pass you by.
Yeah, and I think that this is actually a really good reminder to yeah, we were talking about, it's kind of a difference between like feeling like you need to survive the things and living presently with intention. And you use the word thriving, which I think was a good word, is just thriving inside the actual day-to-days. Whereas sometimes it can actually, I mentioned how I'm like on the arse end of like a funk at the moment. Sometimes I genuinely feel that way. I feel like I am at this like, I have not nothing. I am very grateful, and I did mention in the other episode, I have a really wonderful life and a lot to be grateful for. But sometimes those feelings are there of just get through it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know. Obviously, you've got these feelings that might come up quite frequently, being in the lockdown. What are some of the things that you have kind of done that have helped you out in terms of from surviving to thrive?
Well, so that's the funny thing, because yeah, by no means do I think, you know, you should be only surviving, you're stranded on a desert island. Like sometimes mentally surviving, you know, just getting through things is completely true, and you know, useful for a time. But yeah, with this extended sort of situation, I've decided in a weird way that every day is my whole life. So if it's a Monday, the only thing I'm thinking about and planning about is my Monday. And that because my whole life, I don't worry about the day after. I don't worry about the week after. I don't worry about the month after. I'm not in a position where I can make plans. And lockdown or pandemic is probably similar to when you are in a point in your life for various reasons where you just need to take each step in front of you. And mentally, that's all you can do. But the kind of step above that, rather than just being like, right, I've just got to get through Monday, instead is being like, so what is going to be good about today? Like, am I going to cook myself a meal? Am I going to order in and treat myself? Am I going to celebrate that I got through a Monday, but actually not just I survived it, but I'm going to celebrate that I got through it, you know? And take the small things. And I you know, take a lot of breaks to just reflect on how I'm feeling, because every day, especially being in lockdown, I'm like, I'm stressed, I'm bored, I'm annoyed, I feel weirdly good at for no reason. I'm not sure why. And I just like allow myself to have each thing as they come. And then sort of, if it's a bad feeling, I will celebrate and acknowledge that I passed that and like I got through that in a healthy way. And if it's a good thing, because you know, my sister sent me a brownie yesterday as a random act of kindness, I like, the brownie's gone, but I'm still dining out on that feeling, you know, like, and that's the thing, like I have a little card from her, and when I look at that, it just makes me feel good. And that was the highlight of my day, which isn't like, you could frame that as, oh, that's so sad, that's the only good thing that's happened to you. But I'm like, how often does your sister send you a brownie for no reason? Like, that's lovely. And I'm so grateful. And, despite everything else, I am going to just think about how great that is for the moment. So I guess that's the thing, is like in one frame of mind, one side of the brain, you are surviving. You are kind of like every day you're sort of getting through it, hoping later you will, whether you were trying to get through a bad job, that one day you'll be in a position to quit, or whether you're in a lockdown, hoping one day you'll go on a holiday again. Is that that's a great long-term dream. But if you're sitting there just wishing for that, you can't do anything about it. That's the way I've handled it. It's like, well, what can I do something about? Which is like, I'm going to paint my nails, and I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to feel great doing it. And that is my whole world right now. And that's kind of how I've been managing it. I don't know if that's, you know, like groundbreaking or anything like that, but I've been in a really good mood for the last 2 months. And that's kind of an achievement, considering I've not been able to leave my flat for the last 2 months, really.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I think this whole episode is actually just a good reminder, because that what I think what the lockdown, when we in New Zealand had one as well, it was that reminder of everyone has the same amount of time every day. And sometimes when we habitually get into like I just need to get this done, I need to get this done, I'm going to fill my plate with all these things, we forget that time is actually a nothing, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a, what's that word, it's a not linear thing, but we make it have so much more meaning. And when you were talking about just I just had this visualization of like painting your nails. I have certainly been in a situation where I'm like, how fucking long are these going to take to dry? Like, I need to do this, I need to type that, I need to text this, I need to do that, I need to wash the dish, I need to do the things. But actually taking it back and remembering, like, I don't have to be anywhere, I don't have to do anything.
How
It's
many
my
times?
choice.
Yeah. And how many times do you think to do something and then you go, well, I don't have time for that? It's like, time is infinite. You can make time for anything. Like, you can just, it's the decision. So, and I think like also when you compare, like when I'm talking about the things I'm doing, they are not me doing, an hour's incredible workout every day and I'm getting so fit, or I'm baking 3-layer cakes, or I'm learning a new language. I'm not necessarily doing anything crazy and super productive, or, sometimes it can be quite daunting. You'll see other people putting things on social media about all the stuff they're doing and all the things. And I think for me, again, I was like, I'd like to read more. And all I've done has been like, give yourself, like, allow yourself the time, whether it's 20 minutes to do that. I don't need to share that. I don't need to post that. I don't need anyone giving me kudos. But I like that I am now giving myself permission, I guess, to just spend time on things that I enjoy. And that way, if I've had a particularly tough work day, by the end of the day, I'm reading my book. And that's the thing that I go to sleep, thinking about, is whatever the chapter I just read, rather than taking the stresses with me to sleep. And being able to, like, switch off. Like, sometimes, yeah, work isn't the most exciting and you do just need to get through it, and survive it. But there's all these other moments, like you say, times in the day where you can be taking the opportunities to then have a really nice moment, or treat yourself, or relax. And that means you're balancing that sort of survival aspect of your life with the thriving aspect of your life.
Yeah,
And it doesn't have to be becoming, a world-class gymnast. It can literally be reading a book, or painting your nails, or having a bath.
I feel like we have just cracked the world's code, surviving and thriving at the same time. I really love it.
Yeah. And I mean, think about it. I'm like, I'm not a parent. Their whole lives are surviving, man. Like, when you look at other people's lives, you're like, how do they do it? And
Yeah.
I just think, for me, like, the people I see who've managed to take, multiple children and babies out to parks and zoos and things, and they do wonderful things, for their kids, obviously, but like, they don't, they're not just surviving their life, they're documenting these moments in their kids' lives. They've got a family. This is a life they chose. And they're, you've got to take the good stuff with it, because yeah, it's really, really hard. So if we all just felt like life was just something to survive, like, I'm sorry, most of us are in way more too privileged a position to be able to squander that. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's the most cliche thing, but sometimes count your blessings, because they are many. And we can't, and we shouldn't be taking it for granted. Like, yes, lockdown sucks and work can suck. And sometimes you get broken up with, or your friend is a dick, or your parents wind you up, or whatever. And that's all part of life. And sometimes, sometimes that's the stuff that the best stories are made of too. Like, one other thing when it's not mundane stuff, but sometimes it's, annoying things, or confrontational things, or things that just go wrong in life. My dad used to always say, because our car would break down in the middle of nowhere, or we'd take the wrong turn, or I don't know, something ridiculous would happen. And he'd say, he's like, well, one day this will make for a great story. And it's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to laugh at those crazy moments and not just be like, what are we going to do? Because no one tells stories about holidays where nothing went wrong and the food was all good and they laid by the pool. They talk about, like going to the wrong hotel, or, some crazy waiter who was like, spilt all the wine all over everyone, or whatever. Like, you tell stories about things that are weird and go wrong, but are wonderful in that sense. And that's what like makes life funny and interesting. And sometimes being able to see that in the moment can really it turns your whole frame of mind on how that moment is actually. Like, getting a bit of that objective bird's eye view perspective can sometimes be quite good.
So yeah, I agree. And I think that sometimes that's probably one of the hardest things to do when you're deep in the butthole feeling of just feeling like so self-absorbed. It sounds quite like not, it sounds, no, self-absorbed is the word. We all go kind of like that inward and me in a way, because it's like almost a coping mechanism, isn't it? And it is hard to climb out of that little well to kind of look at the well from the top, looking down on it.
And I think, like, just because other people have it worse than you doesn't mean your feelings aren't valid. Obviously, like, a lot of people, I didn't have work for 6 months in lockdown, and sometimes people were complaining about working from home, and I was like, I'd love to have work. And now that I have work, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'd love to have a break. And so, but both of those things are true. But I think there's a difference between giving yourself permission to feel bad and wallowing in it, or just giving yourself a break to feel bad so that you can then carry on. Is that I think sometimes those good, you might feel good about something, and then the next minute something happens and it just sends you right back down. It's like, wow, what a shame that it takes that little thing to make you go all the way down into the depths. But that good thing that happened was a blip on the radar. Like, you don't hold on to the good the way you hold on to the bad. And yeah, I mean, I've been losing my mind all the time, but I tell you, I kind of as happy as I could be regularly, in a sense, because I guess the other thing sometimes when you are in a tough time or you're surviving is survival shows you what you're made of, in the sense of physically, you've got to work out, can you survive? But when you're being challenged in your daily life and struggles and just, the minutiae and the mundane life, and you're slogging it at a job, there's kind of two ways to think about survival. One is just getting through it and things not necessarily getting better. And the other way of surviving is being like, I choose more. I'm going to take a risk for better. Because at a certain point, if you're not going to change it and you have the ability to do so, then, you've made your bed, in a sense. Like, if you have those choices. When you don't have the choices, find the good things and the bad crap. Like, I would really wish I wasn't locked inside, but I have to make the best of it. Otherwise, what's the alternative? I'm just sitting there feeling sorry for myself. You know, so sometimes it's like, well, how is this mindset serving me? And if it's not serving you, you got to do something about it.
Yeah, I'm quite like interested in this thing, like survival in a physical sense is, yeah, staying alive, lighting the fire, doing the things, but inside your head survival, I feel like, is actually so different. And I like how you've kind of described it as, if you're just you're deciding to continue to have the mundane thing. And I do this quite frequently, where I'm like, I'm just going to wallow and feel sorry for myself. But there is that point, and I don't know what happens or what I specifically do to shift that back around and go a different way. Whereas maybe there are some people who just decide to just go like this all the time. And I don't really know how to pick apart what that thing is to make me turn around or take that little corner. But there is something that usually happens after I finish wallowing to go, okay, let's give this a go. What do you
Well,
think about that? Do you have that?
yeah, I think, I mean, for me, it tends to be fairly standard things. Like, I think the second you talk to someone else, someone trusted and someone empathetic, ideally, there's something about it being released outside of your own brain that lightens the load, first of all. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you're just very stressed about a problem and it's like being stuck in a maze, and that other person is objective, and sometimes they just give you bouncing ideas off things can just help, or feeling like you're not in it alone, you know? So that's always like a turning point, because it just definitely, like, sitting alone in your thoughts, you tend to just go around in circles. But if you are just kind of on your own with it, it's like, well, then don't go around in circles. Dig a little deeper. So it's like, why are you feeling bad? And or write about it, or be like, what would make you happy in this moment? Like, start to challenge the feelings that you have, which is like, do I really just think life is really, really shit? Or can I find one tiny thing in my life that isn't shit, and think about that thing and think, why is that actually a good thing? And if it is a good thing, why am I not doing more of it? Whether it's speaking to friends, or, you know, a hobby, or whatever it may be, or thinking, maybe I should be making a career change. Maybe I should be doing all the, like, you know, people reach these decisions, and sometimes, like, you hear of people quitting a job and it seems completely out of the blue, and it seems completely you know, off the cuff, and it's like, it's usually not. It's usually been like burning
Yeah.
inside them for months and months, and then eventually that idea, that seed of that idea, grows enough to make it just pop out of the ground. It seems like it's come out of nowhere, but there's deep, deep roots down there, and that have finally come to light, you know? And that's why it seems sudden. But, you know, sometimes I feel like, speed up the growing process. You don't have to brood underground for so long before you get to a point of usually utter desperation and breakdown, before you're like, I should do the thing. There are signs earlier on, if you just listen to yourself and trust yourself and think, you know, if I'm getting through every day of my life, surely if I made this radical change, I could get through that too, and maybe it'd be better. Maybe it'd be harder for a few days, but it'd probably be better long term, rather than just slogging it and leading a life of quiet desperation.
Yeah. Someone that I follow, she talks about this a lot. She's like a life coach and things like that. But she says, I hit my rock bottom to make a change, and now she's like a multimillionaire, blah blah blah. But she talks about how you don't actually have to hit rock bottom before you turn the corner. And like you say, there are these internal nudges and signs that you can pick up on, should you choose to, that will help you find the signs. And I think that's sometimes also a struggle, because it's not that it's not that grand wake up call where in the movies where they just open their eyes and they're like, oh, and the music and the angels chime and all the things happen. It doesn't work like that. They're small. They're so small, like a little idea that just pops into your head while you're doing wheeze or something like that, where you just kind of get that. And I think that's the hardest part, because you're like, oh, but I haven't had this big thing happen to me, so I don't deserve to drastically make this change or whatever. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, well, that whole thing, if you bring it back to survival, it's kind of like, oh, well, I am surviving though. And it's like, do you need to get to a point where you're not surviving before you need to make a change? Like, that's the thing is, okay, I'm surviving, but I'm not joyful. I'm not, I'm not my best self. I'm not like thriving, I'm not living the life I want to live, but I'm getting through the life I've got currently. And that's it. Rock bottom is rock bottom because people can only go up from there. But the thing is that when you start going up, that doesn't mean you're just going to keep going up and it's suddenly going to be great. Like, I'd love for my life sometimes to be one of those movie montages where,
Yeah.
they clean up their whole house and redecorate and to have a makeover and get a new job and it's great. And it's like, that'd be awesome. But that's not what it's like. And often on the road to change, you're going to go up and down. So, start at a higher vantage point. At least then, if you do go downwards, might not hit rock bottom. Like, if you don't have to start at rock bottom, don't. But saying that, I think sometimes in those journeys, like the only way to properly kickstart it is to experience what your rock bottom is for yourself, which may be nowhere near the rock bottom for someone else. And for me now, because I've been there, because I've definitely had breakdowns where I've just been like, I'm at the end of my tether, I need to make a change. Now, if I start feeling just the kind of inklings or the beginnings of those things, I can recognize them. I can recognize how far further I could go. And I just refuse to let that happen. I'm like, no, I recognize what this is now. I'm going to nip this right in the bud and I'm going to do the thing that is right for me now. And that's because I've learned from it. Like I was not, gifted with that foresight or that's, ability to read my own mental signals, earlier. I definitely had to work out how to process feelings and recognize behaviors and recognize, what surviving and just getting through life looked like and felt like, and how much better you can feel. But now I'm like, oh no, I can't make that. I can't keep making those mistakes now. Like, I know better. And all you can hope is that not everyone has to experience like a breakdown or a rock bottom or a really like, extreme event to make them make choices that are just healthy for themselves.
Yeah, I like that. So, Walnut, if you are listening, this is your reminder to take this moment and have a little reality check and see where you are. Are you just living, or have you had something good happen to you today that you can hold on to, or are you like spiraling into a black abyss? But what are you going to do, and what are you going to decide to make of that spiral as well? Because I think spirals are important as well. And it's like that quote, god damn it, I'm going to butcher it, I can't remember what it is, but it's about the rainbows, and you don't have rainbows without rain, or sunshine at the same time. So you need to know joy and you need to know rock bottom. Well, not rock bottom, you need to know the opposite of joy to experience both of them.
Well, what I was going to say is like, you might have a spiral and plateau and a peak all in the same day, but what are you going to take away from that? Are you going to say, well, I'm really going to be grateful for that great thing that happened. I'm going to learn from that spiral, and the plateau in between, was it all right? Is that what proportion of my life is just a plateau of sort of mediocrity? Like, I don't even know if that's...
Kate, I think I've lost you for a second. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but Walnut, if you are in the plateau that like Kate was saying at the moment, I really challenge you to think about what it is that is keeping you there and how you can decide to keep on going with it, or turn a little corner and look at what is the good thing. Because like Kate was saying, it's so easy to cling on to the negativity and to, yeah, I don't even know why we do that. We are so quick to hold on to the bad thing that's going on or whatever, and when the good things happen, we enjoy them and embrace them, but we don't hold them as bad as we do the negative things or even remember them in that way. So yeah, interesting topic about surviving and thriving, and I really enjoyed what Kate was saying about that, because it's completely changed my way around um, how I kind of thought about survival as well. Ra- Rather than, yeah, it was nice to have that other look from the other end of the spectrum. Spectrum? Kate, we're back. Hello.
Sorry, my internet literally just cut out.
That's okay. I kind of went off on a little waffle as well about, yeah, it was just interesting. I challenged the walnuts to like have a look at where they are now and stuff like that. But you've also, just having this conversation with you has made me look at my ideas of survival in that different way, and changing it to a thriving mindset rather than just a pushing through it. And while pushing through it, I think is great. Um, I was saying how it's funny how we don't, you mentioned this earlier, we don't hold on to the good stuff as much as we hold on to the bad things. And if one tiny bit, you're having a really good day and one bad thing will just take it right down. And that's what we remember, and that's what we hold on to, which is interesting. So I think this is a good reminder to, when a good thing does happen, while we do feel happy in the moment, hold it as well, and remember that as we remember something bad that's happened.
Yeah,
And the way to kind of do that, I imagine, I haven't done a lot of this practice and I'm looking forward to kind of diving deeper into it, is to just be in that moment and think about how you're feeling in that moment, because it feels like they're not negative, but the negative, I'm doing air quotes, emotions, um, they feel so much bigger, and that's kind of an internal subconscious choice. Whereas when the good times happen, let that get bigger, let that feeling get bigger, and think about it more. What's your body doing? What's your the person next to you doing? What way is the wind blowing? What colors are you seeing? Like, thinking about making those moments bigger so we can remember them more. That was a
I think
very rambly moment, but I hope I made sense.
yeah, and I think that that's it. It's like biologically, and I don't know much about this, but I presume a lot of our, makeup is still in that sense of survival, like making sure you're protected from predators and death and all sorts of things. And that way, probably negative stuff does stick with you more because it triggers that fight or flight kind of response, and that it's survivalist. It's like, am I threatened? When you're fearful of something, even now, like you just accidentally like a photo of a guy you've been dating and you get that horrible feeling over you, and it's all encompassing. And I think being able to remember that, like, your life's not in danger, so you're not surviving for your life. And that's why those things seem so much bigger and they're magnified, because it ties into all of that. Whereas the sad truth is, you don't need to be happy to survive, right? You're not going to shut down and die necessarily if you're not happy. But to be mentally happy and mentally stable, of course, you need happiness. And that's not ecstatic, exhilarated joy all the time. It's feeling content and it's feeling grateful. So I guess a challenge would be, if you're, struggling, just feeling like life's boring and you just have to get through it and there's nothing to look forward to, I challenge you to wake up one day and decide today is going to be a really good day, and really believe that and hold that in your, like, in your little heart, or the forefront of your mind, and see what happens. Because you might start noticing all that stuff. It's like tuning into a color you haven't seen before and then realizing it's all around you. And as cheesy as it sounds, though, it's like you do tend to notice things if you're looking for them. So if you, retune your, life and your eyes and your mind into good stuff and positive stuff. I mean, the only reason I'm saying that is, as cheesy as it sounds, it's really worked for me. The last couple months, I've been like, take each day as you find it, take the good with the bad, and really notice the good. And I've been feeling pretty good. And I just feel like that's all the proof you need, really.
Yeah, I like that. It's like that game that you play. Did you ever play Yellow Car as a kid, where you like have to select the
Yeah,
person, you see a yellow car, and all of a sudden you're like, holy moly, there are so many yellow cars. It's like that, eh? I like it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So There you go. Something to do. Give it a
Oh, I love
go.
that. Yeah, Walnut, you heard the challenge, so make sure you're sharing that with us. Kate, just before we wrap up as well, what are the places where the Walnuts can like find you and stalk you if they want to just see what you're up to and anything like that? I
Yeah,
mean, they already
so
know.
yeah, I'll say it again, but I'm on Facebook, Kate Bromley, and Instagram at Miss K Bromley. And actually, if you go to one of the other Walnuts, Etam, it's a friend of mine, and we put a film out, and it's on his Instagram for his book because it's based on one of his poems. At Cover is Placed, and it's called For You, and it's like a little 30-second film. So if you want to check that out, see what I've been up to, that's there as well. And if you watch it, give me a little tag and share it.
Yay! I will put that little clip into the show notes as well, and I'm pretty sure it's in our group. But if it's not, we'll post it in there too. But Walnut, if you have any questions or you have anything that you want me and Kate can like banter for so long, and we've started our little tradition where Kate's on every 10 episodes. So if you ever have anything that you want like us to just rant about further or anything like that, just flick us a message because in 10 eps we'll be here again talking about something else. So yeah, Kate, have you got anything else that you want to raise on surviving versus thriving before we wrap up?
I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably it. I mean, I wonder if it's come up because I've been rewatching all of Lost, and I really think if we want a follow-up episode, I'm pretty sure I could survive on an island. So that is my last thought on it, which is like, apart from all the mental health stuff, be prepared. You never know. You might get stranded on an island.
I like that. And my mum always says, make sure you're wearing clean undies. So that's the final Walnut wisdom. So Kate, have you had any like new updates on what being a walnut means to you after this experience that you've had for the year? Is there a different wording or summary of being a walnut to you?
I mean, could I be really lame and say it should be thriving, not just surviving?
Yeah, I love
Because like that ties in really well. I think also, I guess I was thinking weirdly about what walnuts are. And there's that saying like, oh, he's a tough nut to crack or she's a tough nut to crack.
yeah.
And I just thought, if you're a walnut, like that shell, the good stuff's on the inside. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. Like, yep, have your boundaries, have a shell in the sense of like, we all need to have our own space, but not like walls up necessarily. But that good stuff's on the inside. So make sure, you're celebrating it.
I love it. Thank you so much. And Walnut, thank you so much for your time and for listening and for being here with us. If you enjoyed, like, share, tag, join the Walnut Tree, all the things. We've said it before and we'll say it again. We want to hear from you. And Kate, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being on another episode, number 70 of Walnut Wednesday. It's such an honor and a privilege to have you on here.
Thank you. I feel the exact same and I love you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.